Those Were the Days is filmed before a live internet audience.
Well, hello there, and welcome into Those Were the Days. It's the show where we talk about classic television through a modern lens, but with nostalgic eyes. I'm your host this week, Travis, aka TV's Travis, and joining me to talk about some very special episodes, I have the wonderful Steven.
Oh, yeah, just call me Tootie tonight, Travis.
All right. The amazing Audie.
What you talking about, Travis?
And the fantastic Amy.
Yeah, no, Audie took mine, so I don't have anything pithy to say.
I had a feeling that would happen.
It was a good one.
So we are kicking off yet another new topic on this show. This month, the next 4 episodes, we are going to be talking about some very special episodes centered around drugs. Because let's face it, classic TV, if there's one thing that it did, especially sitcoms, was the anti-drug episodes.
Thank you,
tonight,
Nancy Reagan.
Well, if you did a sitcom in the 80s, you had an anti-drug episode. 80s into the 90s, it was required. And tonight, what we're going to be talking about is a show called Diff'rent Strokes. And for those of you that don't know, Diff'rent Strokes is a show that ran from 1978 until I believe it was 1986. Ran for 8 seasons, centered around 2 young African-American men who were adopted by a very rich old white man. And hilarity ensued. That's basically the show. It was a cultural touchstone, though. We heard What You Talking About, Travis. What You Talking About, Willis was the catchphrase for Gary Coleman. And like everybody knew that catchphrase, and everybody knew this show. Even if you didn't watch it a ton, you knew about it. But I'm curious to know sort of some background. So starting with Amy, do you have a background with Diff'rent Strokes, and what is it?
I do. My father, to this day, in the year of our Lord 2022, still says, "What you talking about, Willis?"
Oh, that's amazing.
Again, like I could have told you the general premise of the show. I did think, like as I was rewatching it, I was like, they never would have let a single guy, like regardless of how much money he has, they would never let a single guy adopt 2 kids. But I did read it was the IMDb, I think, and it was his former housekeeper's kids. Like she passed away, and so he kept the kids, and that I definitely did not remember at all. But I did watch this enough to remember bits of it. But nothing concrete. But yes, my father still.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Steven, what's your history with Diff'rent Strokes? Do you remember it? Because it's a little bit before your time. You're a few years younger than the rest of us, but
that hasn't stopped me from loving more classic TV that's much older, Travis. So let's just throw that hypothesis out the door. Because look, if it's old, I've probably been into it. Now, to answer your actual question, no, I've never watched a single episode of Diff'rent Strokes. The most I know about Todd Bridges is he got in a boxing match one time with some people or some such, and drugs, maybe. And Gary Coleman has had a troubled life. Rest in peace, Gary Coleman. And I didn't know that. I didn't know Tootie came from this. I remember the name Tootie. No idea that was a character in the show, and I did not know that there was a white daughter or an old white man. I had no idea. This and Good Times share the same space in my brain. Having not seen either of them, they both just kind of like meld. Like there's just I understand like there are other shows that stand off to the side, like Jefferson's. I watched a ton of. I watched all that. There's an area of that time period that I watched a lot of TV, but this I missed it. Completely missed it.
All right. Audio, what about you?
Yeah, this is definitely one of those that was a staple in our house. I remember watching it all the time, kind of family on the couch. I couldn't tell you any specific episodes, but I knew What You Talking About, Willis, all the time. And you definitely remember the sordid history of the people from this program between Gary Coleman and his problems, Todd Bridges and his problems, and Dana Plato was the first one who really had the issues and passed away before anybody. I remember a few years ago when what's her name that plays Mrs. Garrett, who was on here, when she passed away, Todd Bridges was like, "I'm the last one alive
Yeah.
from the original cast of this show," and it was like, "Oh wow."
Yeah.
And given everything that happened, I would not have pegged him as being the one lasting too long. But um, all that stuff aside, yeah, I remember watching this all the time, seeing all the different stuff. Again, this was one of those that was a fun comfort watch to see these characters again, even though we didn't get Arnold. But
No. I know.
Yeah.
I'm like
Yeah.
sad that this is Steven's first
Mhm.
episode and there was no Arnold.
That
at
was
all.
wild to me. I was totally expecting to see some what you talking about Willis with a drug episode, and Arnold's just like, I'm sleeping at a friend's house. See ya.
This was actually
Borrowing
the
his
first
underwear.
the first episode of the series that didn't have Arnold in it. Was this one? I found out after the fact. I didn't know that when I picked it. And Diff'rent Strokes was not afraid, did not shy away from the very special episodes. There's a few of them you could choose,
Yeah.
not just drug related, but there was one that dealt with abuse a little bit and stuff like that. So it definitely didn't shy away from messages like that. But this was an episode that I wanted to do because it's not your typical anti-drug episode. And I'll get into kind of why that is. But to give you a quick rundown of the episode, it is the first day of freshman year for Willis. He's heading to a brand new school. He's leaving junior high. He's a freshman, and it's his first day, and he's all nervous. And as he's getting ready to leave, he gets a ride with his dad in the limo, and he goes to school for his first day. And his first day there, the first student he runs into, who, by the way, is played by the actor who played Theo in Die Hard.
Clarence Gilliard.
Clarence Gilliard Jr. is the actor who played the student. And I bring that up because I love him as an actor. He was in Top Gun as well as Sundown. He's 27 years old when they made this, playing a high school student.
Right. His arms are not 27 years old, Travis. They were big arms.
Oh, he was wearing a sweater that was a size and a half too small.
Yeah.
For sure. So he runs into him, has a bad not a bad confrontation, but the guy just kind of blows him off. He doesn't care who this freshman is. Immediately has a run-in with a young girl, knocks her books out of her hand, meets some other people. It doesn't go well. He's having a rough day of it. And he goes home and he's all upset. And his dad's like, well, you know the best way to make friends, get somebody to talk about themselves. Which honestly, I was like, that's brilliant. And like, on top of that, not something I expected this show, like the direction that it to go in.
Yeah.
Was immediately the dad being like, no, just get people to talk about themselves. That's what they really want. Tells him all this. So he goes back to school the next day and he runs into the same couple of football players. They're seniors. They really razzed him the day before and starts trying to talk to them, given all the same questions as his dad had said. What'd you do on your summer vacation? What's your favorite TV show? Where were you born? And they recognize that he showed up to school the day before in a limo.
Yeah.
And he's got money.
They're laser focused on this guy's got money, and this is our meal ticket.
Yep. So they convince Willis that they will invite him to a party if he brings them some weed, some grass. He gets them a lid of grass.
What is a lid?
And
like what's the unit of measure? Is that slang? Like, is that like a dime bag? Like, I'm not a drug, I don't do drug person
I believe
stuff.
at one point they do say an ounce, which is
Okay.
So
that's a ridiculous amount for a kid to buy on his own at like what Willis's age would be about 14.
Yeah.
But also not so the bag he does wind up with is only half, but it's not like that is a TV ounce is what that is.
Oh, right.
That's a lot of ounce.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
This is the biggest ounce I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's in like a Ziploc gallon-sized bag. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So Willis ends up, he gets the weed, takes it home. He's hiding it in his room, but not before smelling it. And while he's in the bedroom, his sister comes in, and so he hides it real quick in the desk, and he's talking to them. He gets them to agree to loan him $150 or $75 because he spent $150 on the marijuana.
Did he spend?
And-
Okay, this confused
No,
me.
oh.
He spent 75 on half of it, and he needed to buy the other half,
the
right?
other half.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Okay. Also, by
So-
the way, the rules in this house are ridiculous. Like, if you're gonna knock, wait. Don't just knock and run in the room at somebody. Like they basically knocked while swinging the door open.
As
Yeah.
a teenage boy, you do not want to
Yeah.
just walk in there.
Right? No, you don't want to just walk into that room. That's
Uh-uh.
That's a recipe for a bad time.
Yeah, nobody
Lord
wants you to
knows-
do that. You don't want to do that.
Lord
They don't
knows
want you to
his
do
sister has warned him not to do that in her room.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So he hides it. He hides the weed. They have a little conversation. Then he goes into the bathroom, and they're like, "Oh, we got to feed Arnold's goldfish because Arnold's not home. He's staying the night at his friend's house." And so she's like, "Oh yeah, the fish food's over there." And Tootie pulls out the bag and immediately gives it a smell and knows what it is.
Yeah.
And the look on her face is great. And then
Oh,
she's
yeah.
looking at the fish bowl, and she's looking at the bag, and she's looking back at the fish bowl. And this is where there is an 80-yard line, and
Mhm.
I'm almost certain I know what was being said. But
I'm
Amy, you
pretty
mentioned that you're
positive
pretty
But
sure.
I'm pretty sure I know what they
So
said.
the line in the show was, "That must be the goofiest goldfish in New York
Mhm.
or in the city." What do you think it was that she was
I
saying?
think it was, that must be the happiest goldfish in the city, which is definitely not on message for the episode.
Mhm. That's what I thought
This
too.
is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is what it looked like.
Somebody looked at that and said, that is not the message that we're going for here.
Anti-drug. This is an anti-drug episode.
Right.
Standard and practices came over like we got to redo that line.
Mhm.
So Tootie and what was the other Kimberly? They confront Willis about the weed because Kimberly comes over, smells it, same thing. They confront him about it. He's like, he's trying to play it off. I bought it. It's none of your business. Blah blah blah.
I'm
they're
not
picking
using
on
it.
him. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and they're picking on him a little bit. And then Dad comes into the room, same exact way. Knock knock as he's opening the door.
Sure.
So Willis dives onto the bed, hiding the bag underneath
Very
himself.
casually.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Very casual.
Totally
Very
pulled that off.
casually, football spike on it.
Yeah.
onto the
We get
bed.
some great little one-liners, some little zingers. I did like the writing in that part.
Yes.
Was quite fun.
This whole episode was zingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By this time tomorrow, you'll be flying high. It was a great
It was
one.
a lot.
It was quite good.
The way they threw these things at him, the way Tootie and Kimberly were throwing those jokes, like any dad paying even a half of a bit of attention would have been like, "What's up with you guys?" But this is a sitcom, so we're all just like, "Oh, this is funny jokes they'd say all the time." I'm out of touch.
But he figures it out that there's something going on. He finds the bag, he gets it, and he scolds Willis, and he goes into the bathroom and he flushes it. Now Willis,
Well-
by the way, was smoked some of this while, or no,
They
no,
went out to
okay, I'm
dinner.
sorry.
Yeah.
They went out to
Yeah.
dinner. Yes. So they go out to dinner. He says, "Oh, I don't want to go. I got homework to do. It's only my second day." So he stays home. They go out to dinner, and while they're gone, Willis smokes some of the weed. Because that's what you do. You smoke that in your house.
Oh
right?
yeah, and then you spray with the
With no
Febreze.
windows.
They're
Yeah.
just my
With
favorite thing is
in
like
a room with no windows.
yeah.
A room with no windows. Let's smoke this pot.
And that air
Mhm.
freshener is just going to
Mm.
make it's mix of air freshener and pot.
It's
You
not
know,
good.
it doesn't
Yeah.
cover anything. It just makes whatever smells bad smell slightly like fresh linens. Like
And
that's
honestly, that is how it used to go down in my college dorm, though.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just, you can practically see the waves of smoke coming out from under the door, and you're like, come on, like,
yeah.
just
Yeah,
try.
you're not fooling anybody. But I do love when they come back home. So Kimberly, Tootie, and Dad come home from the restaurant, and he immediately is like, "What's that weird smell?"
Okay.
And he
I have
follows
a
it
huge
upstairs.
problem here. All right.
Okay. All right.
Because he's in the room and he's like, What's that weird smell? He would have been a teenager or young adult in the 1960s. There is no way this man does not know exactly what that smell is.
I mean, yes,
Yeah.
you're not wrong there. Although, given how old the actor was, he was in his 60s at the time, or close to it. So yeah, I guess he would have been, in his 30s during the
Yeah.
60s.
He was not like he's out of it,
Listen.
Yeah, but
he's paying attention.
it's probably been a while. He's
Yeah.
out of the
You
game. He's
don't
not used
forget
to
that
it.
smell.
What I just
You
really
don't forget
wanted
that
was a
smell.
wavy flashback of him at Woodstock or something, just be like, I remember this fondly.
But so
Still
he
in a
follows
suit, though.
Still in his
Yes,
suit, but with
exactly.
like a tie-dye bandana.
So they follow the smell upstairs and they find Willis high.
Oh,
And I love when he's like, what are you doing? Watching a little TV. And it cuts over to the small TV and he's like, the TV's not on.
All right, listen. I'm not saying that I too have done this under the influence of marijuana, but I have. I saw that and I was like,
So yeah, so he realizes what's going on. He scolds him. He takes the weed. He flushes it down the toilet. There's the great joke of the only one getting high now is the
Tidy Bowl Man.
Tidy Bowl Man, and Willis is like, he owes me $75.
That was really good.
That was
Which
so good.
that's good. And then he comes out. Dad comes out and he scolds Willis some more and tells him that he would take him to the police station himself if he does that again. But he also, it's an interesting. He gets on him about the marijuana, but it also feels like he's getting on him about like buying friendship and being influenced by these older kids to do this, which was, I liked that. I kind of want to talk about that a little bit more, but Willis is like, all right, nope, it's cool. So he goes to school the next day and he talks to the two seniors, and that scene was great too. I got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is my dad found the grass and he flushed it down the toilet. But the good news is he flushed it down the toilet.
Yeah.
And they're like, how's that good news? Because he could have flushed me down the toilet. And he basically, he learns that, he learns the lesson of like not buying his friendship. And then he goes to his locker and another freshman comes over and recognizes him from junior high, makes a new friend, episode ends.
Yeah.
Very simple plot, very quick. What I liked about it was it is an anti-drug episode, but it's not preachy about the anti-drug angle of things.
Yeah.
Which is nice because usually what ends up happening in these episodes is that you get the dad sits him down and has the heart-to-heart talk about how bad drugs are or something of that nature.
Or something terrible happens to someone.
Yes,
because
exactly.
they've done drugs.
And the way they handled it in this, I actually very much like. First of all, Willis, he's a young, dumb kid, so he does smoke it in the house. And then I thought that whole bit was fairly true to life in that he just got himself really high off a very small amount of it because he never smoked any before, and he just was like listing to the left a little bit, and he was just tired. But I liked that it didn't get preachy, and I liked that kind of feeling of like he was almost as upset that he was being influenced by the older kids than he as much as he was about the drugs. And it's interesting to talk about an anti-drug episode and marijuana being the drug in 2022 when it's now legal in so many states. And we've learned so much more about it over the last 40 years. But I was very taken by the fact that this one didn't get preachy. It was funny. They did cut the line, the happiest goldfish in New York, which is really funny. And I kind of wish they would have kept, but I get why. Like I understand that, but I just liked the way that they kind of addressed the issue overall. Because again, it wasn't like Dad, to your point, Amy, he probably did experiment in the 60s.
Yeah.
And so it's not like he was just going to, browbeat him over it. He's just like, I don't want you doing that. It's illegal. And don't let people influence you like that. And I don't want it in my house. That's fair. There's nothing wrong there. That's not overly preachy. But I'm curious, Audie, starting with you, what did you think of like the drug message in this, the way that they packaged it in the context of like very special episodes and sort of the 80s, especially in the anti-drug and anti-marijuana type stuff that went on? Because a lot of us went through that too in school.
Yeah. It's interesting, again, like you said, tackling the issue of marijuana from 2022 in an episode of television from 1981. And I am really surprised it was as tepidly handled as it was. Like, we don't know that Willis actually got any punishment at all in this episode other than a talking to from his dad that one instance.
Yeah.
Which who knows how much actually sunk in that instance because he was still high. But it's funny we talk about it because 2 years later was the very hammered down episode of Diff'rent Strokes where even Nancy Reagan was on the episode.
I mean, I think that's the difference right there,
Mhm.
right? Because Reagan was elected in what, 81?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Which
like
is when this aired, so
So they
yeah.
definitely threw down the hammer later talking about drugs and stuff. And it was a different kind of story about drugs being sold in school and stuff. But yeah, this was interesting. Like again, I'm kind of surprised at how tepid it was. And like you said, I'm impressed with the way Mr. Drummond handled it and the way he talked to Willis about it. Because it did feel a little bit more real of somebody who probably did experiment with this in his life, previously, and knows, it can be a slippery slope. He didn't like say this was the most terrible stuff, but he mentioned it's illegal, so don't mess with it. That's it.
Yeah, I feel like he handled it. Go ahead.
I do like that that's the angle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it's less about the like, "Oh, this is so bad," because I did kinda think, like, let's cut to Mr. Drummond going to pour himself 2 fingers of scotch, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's just, do that. But yeah, no, it was definitely the, like, "You're a young black kid in New York City, how about not?" Like, the last thing
Mm-hmm.
you need is, like, a stint in juvie, and I
Right.
do kinda dig that that's the way that went.
Yeah, not heavy-handed, and he talked to him like he was, he really cared about him. He cares about Willis, and he talked to him like his like you would to your child, which is not, it's not going to be this scripted talk, right? You're just gonna. I really like that. Steven, what about you? What did you think of like that part of the episode, that kind of message?
I love the parenting style. And I mean that's just how you've got two different ways you can go, right? You can just shove your kid in a closet with a full carton of cigarettes and be like, smoke those until you can't see straight. Like there's that parenting. There's like the darn near abusive. You did something wrong.
Yeah.
But listen, here's the truth about it. Your kids are probably going to only do the things that you were close to doing or did yourself anyway. So like it's just kind of hypocritical to come at them like too hard. So I really do appreciate when a show, particularly at this time, like this is like you're beating your kids with like blade sharpening leather whips and crap, back in that day, and belts and switches, and this is the age of corporal punishment for anybody under 4 feet tall, and they didn't go that route. It's almost revolutionary if you really think about it, that they would just be like, no, you're just going to calmly sit down and be like, look, you're making a mistake. Don't make that mistake. How about we don't do this again? I mean, he comes at it a little fiery, takes it, flushes it down the toilet. But what else is he supposed to do with it? Like, I'm confiscating this, and then I mean, that's good. That was good. You're supposed to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really appreciate. I was shocked. It was not full housey. Like it wasn't. I'm going to talk to you, Willis, but I'm going to be looking at the camera to the young people out in the world. They could have done that, and they didn't. And I appreciate that it wasn't heavy-handed, because what you're teaching, two things. Your TV shouldn't be the primary teacher of these lessons, but it's trying to. It's trying to teach you two things. One, don't do illegal drugs. Two, parent your kids like they're human beings who are dealing with heavy stuff that you might not even know about, like first day of school. You could brush that off and go, school is hard. Grow up, but they didn't.
Well, and his parenting throughout the entire episode was great because he's all excited. He's excited for Willis to have his first day in high school, and he's trying to relate to him. So he's trying to tell him the story of like the stuff that something that happened to him, and which didn't happen to him, but he was trying to do that. Then when his first day goes poorly, he's trying to give him advice of things he can do to help, right? Instead of just being like, oh, that's terrible, or oh, don't worry, it'll get better. He's like, no, try this. Get them to talk about themselves. They'll like you better.
Yep.
Because they'll be talking about themselves. And slightly backfires, but that's not his fault.
No, these are meatheads he's trying to talk to. They're the wrong tribe.
But it's his fault a little bit because he decided to go word for word what his dad said and didn't pause to get an answer. He just kept asking the questions. So,
but
which
these guys,
honestly,
these guys were never going to like him. Like those questions are going to work when he sits down at lunch with people like him, not meathead senior football nerds. Like that's not going to work.
But I also really like that. Like that's a subtle thing that the show did that it was kind of cool. Is Willis, his Mr. Drummond tells him exactly how things would go. Come up to him and he's like, hey, how you doing? And he's rapid firing the questions because he's play acting a scene. Willis doesn't get necessarily that context, so he does the exact same thing the next day, which a 14-year-old kid would probably do, who's got some awkwardness to him and is nervous.
Yeah.
So I actually appreciated that a lot. I liked what they did here. I thought that it was well structured.
Did we talk about Julio? So somebody who's not a I've never watched Diff'rent Strokes. Is Julio a recurring character on the show, or was he just the middle school stand-in that's like, I know a face and that's Julio, and Julio's like, nah, I'm trying to do my own thing.
I feel like it's hard for me to remember.
I was going to say not enough that I remember, but
okay,
No. Apparently, according to IMDb, this was the only episode of Diff'rent Strokes he was ever on.
Okay, so I needed
so
that
he was
context.
just supposed to be this character,
right? So he's just that other kid that Willis meets that's supposed to give you some kind of like, I found somebody from middle school, but they don't want to play with me.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's actually one of only 4 things that kid ever did.
Oh, dang. Hey, but you know what? He's done more than I have. I've never been on TV.
That's true.
I
mean, we can't all be Clarence Gilliard.
Yeah, right. 27 with arms of steel. Just, I am a high schooler. Dang.
I was very impressed by him. No, I enjoyed and I like the humor. I mean the show is funny, like genuine good writing, good jokes going on in this. There was the he owes me $75. That one got a good laugh out of me.
Killed me, absolutely killed me, because he's still high. Right?
Yes.
like that's
Which
not a
it's
joke
difficult
from him. He means it.
Yes. That's what makes that work. And I don't know when Todd Bridges' drug problems started, so I don't know how much of his portraying being high was memory at this point in his life, or just really good acting. But he did a good job with that. Like that was really well done, and like his deliveries were good. The stuff with Kimberly and Tootie were really great. Like Tootie she was on top of things the whole time.
Yeah,
and
she was good.
Just gonna razz him constantly. I also loved the one-sided phone conversation with Mr. Drummond and Arnold on the phone.
I did
because
laugh.
It starts out with Kimberly, because Kimberly's on the phone. She's like, I can't really let you say that you can do that. It's like, oh no, hold on, Dad's here. And then he just gets on the phone, and it's so great. He's like, well, what about a change of underwear and socks? No, not mine. Yeah, I suppose you can borrow from your friend. Just not the ones he wore today. Like,
which, man, I'll tell you one thing. There's a few items of clothing I won't borrow from another person. One of those things is underwear. Underwear and swim trunks. Anything that's been in someone else's nether regions, I'm not putting those on. I'm like, they washed them.
Like a 10-year-old boy, they do not care.
I don't know. I cared at 10 years old. I was a weirdo.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yes, but Steven, if there's one thing this show has established is you are an outlier amongst 10-year-old boys.
I won't even put the same socks on that I've worn, even if it was just for a few minutes. It just bothers me. I'm like, they've been out of their balled up state and on my feet, and I can't abide putting those back on.
So,
Okay, quick little look up here.
Yeah.
Bridges started smoking marijuana as a 15-year-old, which was a year before this episode.
Oh,
Oh,
snap. Okay, so he knows.
So he was acting
he-
experience.
he had an idea at that point. He started smoking grass. That was one of the things I noticed with this episode is grass. That dates the episode. Big
I
time.
was wondering if they were ever going to say marijuana at all.
Yeah.
I think it was Kimberly was the only one that said it, right? Did she? I think she
so.
said marijuana at one point.
She said it. Maybe Mr. Drummond said it once.
Yeah.
That could be. I like too that it didn't go like, again, they didn't go like reefer madness. He didn't do
Right.
something dumb or put himself. They also
No.
didn't have like they didn't go through. They just hand waved away how he got it.
Yeah.
14-year-old kid in a high school bought $75 worth of weed,
Listen,
and we don't see it happen. It just happened off screen.
if 80s television, like we always like everybody always jokes, right, about how you thought quicksand was going to be a bigger problem in your life than it really was. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, drugs, I mean, not here because it's legal, but drugs are way harder to get than TV would lead you to believe. I was
This is
never
true.
once offered drugs. I drank illegally outside of things with my family exactly once. And it was the last night of my sophomore year of college when I was 2 months away from 21. So, you know, it's not that it's a dare. Did you guys have dare
Oh, yeah.
in
Oh, yeah.
school?
Yeah.
It was
I marched
ineffective.
I marched in
Yeah.
the dare float. No, see, for me, I mean, not now because I'm 40 and I understand life. What it did for me was I I
Will
didn't
you
want
teach us,
to
please?
take yeah, I didn't want to like I wouldn't take Tylenol. Like I wouldn't take anything. It was so hyper effective. Um, yeah. So I've outgrown that. It's fine. I got my teeth out. Yeah.
Well,
They were like Vicodin.
And
Oh yeah.
and this episode was like 81, 82. So this was right at the beginning of a lot of that stuff, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
We had Dare, and I think before Dare it was called Save in my school,
Yeah.
which I
Mhm.
don't even remember what that stood for, but it was basically the younger version of the same program.
Yeah.
Sure.
You had your Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Students Against Drunk Driving stuff, and there was the war on drugs, and there was like
Mhm.
I said, like we said, every 80s sitcom had an anti-drug episode. Every 90s sitcom, I think at some point did too. It was hammered home, and almost all of them centered around marijuana.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah.
the
One thing that I
gateway
noticed.
looking
drug.
at our list. I
Mhm.
was looking at our list, and it's interesting that we've managed to have. I mean, this one obviously is, and I believe that our next episode is in marijuana analog. But the
Mhm.
other two are not, and that is interesting. Excited about
Yeah,
that.
and
Foreshadowing.
now right, and now we're in a world where it's legal in many states, both
Yep.
medicinally and recreationally.
Mhm.
We've moved, it's evolved from just being smoked in rolled and doobies and your Cheech and Chong Woodstocks and all of that to gummies and food and all that
Where's
type of stuff
Popcorn?
too.
Mhm.
hmm we're also like television wise, we're in a post Weeds world, right? The show Weeds was centered around a suburban housewife who, what I can't remember, is it she becomes a widow and decides
Yeah.
to sell weed in order to
Yeah,
make ends
she's
meet.
basically her husband dies, and she like he has been taking care of her. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like she basically has no skills outside of being a wealthy housewife. So she starts selling weed and then eventually growing weed. People always joke about like Breaking Bad Canada, right? Where it's like
Mhm.
you have cancer, your treatment starts next week, end of series. I feel like Weeds 2022 is just hers picking up her like vendor license at town hall. and it's like,
Yeah.
I thought that
The
when I
show is all
saw
about the red tape of getting her dispensary started.
yeah,
when I
yeah.
saw the recent Clerks 3 trailer, and I'm pretty sure Jay and Silent Bob actually have a dispensary since it's legal in
Yeah.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, this is a different angle. This has changed a
Wasn't
lot.
there a Netflix show with Kathy Bates or somebody where they were owned a dispensary or something?
I think you're
Could
right.
be.
I know what you're talking about. I can't place it, but it's floating
it-
around in here.
But that's the kind of show where it didn't take off for whatever reason, but
Yeah.
I
But
did do.
it's
I did
go
some
ahead.
weed math.
Oh,
Uh,
good. Yeah, bring us the math.
I did some weed math. So if you go into any inflation calculator and you put in $150, it comes out to $482.34.
That's a lot of money.
So, I went ahead and went to one of my local dispensary's websites, and I looked
Nice.
up at sort of their like bottom level, right? So now you got to remember too that like presumably whatever Willis is buying is some like dude
Back alley skunky
garage,
stuff, right?
right? And this is like
Mhm.
boutique, has a pedigree longer than the winner of the Westminster Dog Show. Um, option available at my local dispensary and did the math out for what a full ounce would cost you, and it was $324. So, inflation wide, and this is recreational, which,
Mhm.
like if you got a medicinal card, it's significantly cheaper. But
Mhm.
yeah, so the weed market doing okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I
good
would
for
say so.
them.
Good for them.
And quite honestly, it needed to be decriminalized and legalized in a lot of places because it really. I'm going to stand on that soapbox and just say I don't see marijuana as being this huge issue for the majority of people. And if it's
No.
something that you're not into it. That's cool. Like there's nothing wrong with that either. But it's never reefer madness was the big one that like
Yeah.
set the stage for all of the terrible things that'll happen to you. And honestly, 99% of the people I know that have partaken of weed at some point in their life do what Willis did, which is stare at a TV that's off for half an hour and then go to sleep.
Well, anything's bad for you if you do it too much. I mean,
Yeah.
the only reason we accept alcohol is because Grandpa was an alcoholic and he's fine.
He's
But no, Grandpa wasn't a weed person, so we're all like, "That's a
Well,
dangerous substance. We don't
even
understand."
alcohol had its stages in this country.
Oh,
So
sure, yeah, prohibition was the
Yeah.
thing. I don't mean to discount, a massive moment in history where somehow they
right, but I'm
convinced a
saying
bunch of
like
people to make an amendment.
we got on that side, this side of alcohol. We're starting to get on this side of marijuana in this country. It's just interesting that we're this far down the line with that one.
It's a
Yeah.
slippery
Well,
slope,
there's
Audie. Next thing you know, they'll legalize balls of heroin or whatever, speedballing.
there's a lot of
Sure.
stuff we could go into about that. We won't because
Yeah.
this is just
Sure.
a show for it. But
This is
it's
a gateway
interesting how
episode.
many. Yeah. Yes. But it's interesting how things have changed, and which is why like this
Mhm.
was a good episode to talk about because the way it handled it
Yeah.
feels like something that would have been done in the last few years
Yeah.
as opposed to something that was done 40 years ago. Like I went into this having not seen this episode maybe ever, but certainly not for probably 30 years, thinking it was going to be a lot heavier handed than it was. So
Oh yeah.
now it's going to be interesting to see what the rest of these anti-drug episodes we watch, how they handle it.
It's curious you use
But,
that
yeah.
term anti-drugs as if all the episodes will be anti-drug.
I'm sorry, I should say drugs episode, right? Because that's what we're here to
Capital
talk about
letters.
tonight.
So you're talking anti-drugs, I might need a different choice.
No.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what there is to say about this episode. It was a half-hour sitcom, so there's not a lot there.
Yeah.
It's not a very long episode, but it had a very simple message to it, and I appreciated that message, and I liked the writing of the entire episode, both the humor and the jokes, but also the kind of spine behind that and the backbone of what they were going for, where they were making a episode about marijuana, but it wasn't making it about the evils of marijuana. It was because even with it, like Willis only buys that because he wants to impress some seniors at his school. Like that's his
Yeah.
whole purpose behind it.
Mhm.
So
I
the
figure
way
he probably thought at some point, right? Like if he buys it and brings it to these guys, they're gonna he assumes they're gonna ask him to smoke with them. And he doesn't want that to if he's gonna screw it up, right, and do the whole coughing like an idiot thing and he wants to get that out of the way quietly by himself in the privacy of his bedroom and not in front of his cool new friends.
Mhm.
yeah, and honestly, I thought when that scene first started, I thought he was at the party for some reason. And then as it pulled back and he's coughing, I realized, oh no, he's just in his bedroom smoking it in the house like an idiot.
Party scenes are expensive
So-
in sitcom television. All those extras
That's
and
true.
different lights.
You gotta you gotta have a different set and all the extra people,
extra
that.
music.
So you
It's
gotta pay the
just
extras.
let's keep it all. Let's just make this plot device. Keep everything in house. No moving around.
This was from a production standpoint. This was like classic television in that it took place in the living room, in the bedroom, and in the high school hallway. They had 3 sets.
Yep.
2 of them are your normal sets that are in like every single episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm sure the high school gets reused a lot. It's
For
probably
everything.
a normal
Yeah,
set
it's
for them.
just
Mm-hmm.
the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slap some
So-
old pews in there, and all of a sudden it's a church. Look at that.
Yep.
Magic
That's all you need.
television. This was a good show, Travis. Thank you for picking this one. I had a good
Yeah.
time with it. I would potentially go back and watch more Diff'rent Strokes, I think, after seeing this.
That was
Yeah.
going to be my question: is if you would if you think you would enjoy the show. There's 8 seasons of it. They're all available on Amazon Prime in the U.S. You didn't get to see Arnold, so you didn't see Gary
Yeah,
Coleman.
you definitely need.
I miss
Yeah, you gotta
him.
watch one with Arnold.
I tell you what, one thing I do like, I realize after watching multiple like sitcoms like this where they're short and it's like that thing I would just lay in bed and watch on Nick at Night. Like that whole universe of how to watch TV has really changed a lot. So like I would love to go back and watch it, but then I look at like all the TV that I'm forced to watch that's a cultural zeitgeist surrounding, like all this. You got your Better Call Sauls and your Marvel shows that seem to just be coming out just constantly, and your boys and stuff. Like I don't know that I have enough time that I would also want to kick my feet up and turn on anything. But I want to. Like I would, one day when I'm old and in a nursing home, be like, you know what I want to do? Turn me on some Diff'rent Strokes. Okay, Grandpa.
There you go. Amy, how about you? Do you want to revisit Diff'rent Strokes? Did this ignite that flame?
Maybe. How's that? I'm kind of with Steven, right? There's nothing wrong with it, and like I enjoyed it, and it was fun to go back, even if there was no Arnold. But like I have a feeling it's going to come up again, right? Like at some point.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I'm sure.
Or what's the other
Probably.
show? What's the Facts of Life?
Yeah, the
yeah.
spin-off.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure we'll get back there sometime. But yeah, it's kind of falls into the like it's good, but I think there's other things higher on my priority list.
That's fair. That's fair. I pegged you as a Facts of Life fan.
Yeah.
So
That was a
would
good
make
show.
a little bit more sense. It was. Audie, how about you? Is this something that you'd be going back to, you think, or is there just too much that this kind of gets backburnered?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. No, I'm not watching any more of this. Too much other stuff to watch, and it's summertime, so trying to watch anything with my boys going around the house and stuff is hard enough as it is. I still have the love for this show and what it did and what it was. So it's one of those things where I've watched it. I'm good. So
Sure.
Fair. I'm kind of in the same boat as all of you. Like, it's certainly not something that I would avoid. And if somebody wanted to sit down and watch some Diff'rent Strokes, I would be like, yeah, sure, we can do that. It's available. I'm not seeking it out, but I also very much appreciate it. And this episode reminded me that the show is probably a lot better than I remember.
That's what I was going to say. It is definitely better than I remembered. I did laugh out loud several times.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a show doesn't last for 8 seasons for nothing, but it's always curious to see something that we're that far removed of. Like the final season of this show was almost 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Dang.
And yet all of us were laughing out loud at this episode. So it's always curious to me. So yeah, that's Diff'rent Strokes. That's our first drugs episode of this month, and I'm glad that we got to talk about it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Now, our next episode is not happening next week. We're going to take a week off because somebody's on vacation.
That's me.
But we'll be back in 2 weeks. And Audie, what are you bringing us for this next episode?
So I am bringing us an episode of the series Dinosaurs.
Yes.
And probably not the one you're thinking. We're going season 2, episode 9, A New Leaf.
I'm so excited.
I am so excited, and I had
nice.
no idea that there were 2 drug-related episodes of Dinosaurs until I saw this one, because I was convinced when I saw Dinosaurs that you were going to do Robbie on steroids. And
right?
That is a good one.
you didn't. And I'm excited because I don't remember this one. I watched this was TGIF Prime, baby. I watched every episode of this.
I feel like Robbie on steroids is almost up there with the Saved by the Bell episode.
Yeah.
For just like sheer, like it's too good. Like
I was gonna say, can we say a little something about that and why none of us are picking that one?
Sure.
It's the easy, I mean, someone could have, but it was the easy pick.
Right.
Yeah.
There's
the low hanging fruit.
Yeah, there's episodes of TV that everyone knows that's classic that just feels too low hanging fruit. And I'm like, let me grab something, from my past that I treasure, that I remember distinctly enjoying. That's not
when we posted the preview this morning. What's the first thing that came?
First GIF. Yep.
Yeah.
The first GIF was of that.
From Michael Miller at Joe Uncool posted that GIF, and look, Michael, sorry to say that's not happening this month. We can give that spoiler away. That doesn't mean we're never going to talk about that episode. That could happen at some point. So be prepared for that.
We do drugs too.
The problem I think all of us have is that we all have such a breadth of TV joy and stuff that it almost feels like you're compelled to do that one. So you just immediately put it off to the side. You're like, no, I'm not going to waste my one drug pick to show my friends the joy of an episode that I always loved and use Saved by the Bell. Like, I'm just not going to do it. Not going to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Looking at Twitter, that was our one response, was that GIF. It was a very good one. No emails this week, but if you want to send us an email, you can do that. Those were the days show at gmail.com, or hit us on Twitter, those days show. We post Audie's amazing artwork for every episode up there. And I posted about Clarence Gilliard Jr. being in this episode earlier tonight.
Good.
That was fun. But yeah, and if you have ideas for episodes you want us to talk about, send it to us there. Send us an email. Let us know what you think about stuff. Give us suggestions for things that you want to hear us talk about as well.
Yeah.
You've got 2 weeks to watch Dinosaurs, which is on Disney Plus. So
yeah, I'm just turned on all the Dinosaurs. Like, if I can sit my son down and get him into this, I will die. And I'll be the happiest dad that ever lived. I don't know if it'll work. But I'll try.
And I already watched this episode once, and it's going to be fun.
Gosh, this show is such a big deal. I just can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah.
It consumed. I think I was 6 or 7 when this show hit, and it was like right at the perfect age for it. And my dad would leave it on the TV and not make us turn it to something else, which is just everything. That's when you know something's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, save it for the episode.
I know. I'm sorry. I get so pumped. All right. Pretend you didn't.
So that's coming up. That is coming up in 2 weeks. So remember, you have 2 weeks now to watch this episode and send us your thoughts on it. Those were the days show at gmail.com and at those days show on Twitter. We want to hear from you. So that'll do it for this week. We're talking more drugs next week, or in 2 weeks, next episode.
There you go.
Apparently, I've been dipping into my weed gummies a little bit. Here. I'm confused now. So come on back for that. For Steven, for Audie, for Amy, and for myself, have a great week, and we'll see